Hi, welcome to my urban science educational review. I was honestly hesitant towards reading this book for some reason. I've heard a lot of mixed reviews on it, although the one thing that stood out to me was the language that was used in sentence structure, although I did not agree with the other student that told me about that. I thought it was fairly easy to understand. I think the first thing I should preface this screencast as well is that I'm 100% privileged when it comes to racial and ethnic inequalities. It's something that I will never understand because I am not in that category of minorities. Despite that, it's something that I do my best in being active and informed about, and it's a constant and consistent thing that I am with struggles of minorities and people of color, and speaking up for those who can't defend themselves. Over this past semester, I've learned so much information about culturally responsive teaching, briefly in our class 2 for science, and then I took an entire class for diversity as well. And I felt like that I've saw this theme prevalent in the book, and I know so much information about it, I really can see the correlations between the two. I was amazed by the context of the style of teaching and awareness as well. To me, it may be, and others, it may be common sense. But for some people, it may not be about having a culturally responsive teaching and why that's important for it to be implemented in every classroom too, besides just urban schools. Being born and raised in California, Southern California, of course, we are not biased towards anybody. We are a melting pot, I feel like, in California, and we're safe. But it's not for every state that's like that either. On my slide, I have what makes up culture, and it can be many things for different people about their work in education, home and living, fashion, identity, food and drinks, arts and entertainment, which is huge too, travel and transportation, money and finances and relationships within that culture too. It means one culture can mean many things to the people of that culture. And how do we integrate this in the urban classroom, which is, I think, a really fantastic question to propose. I think step one in being informed is being educated on it. Like I said, being informed. So why do we think this is important? I've heard from teachers when I've discussed diversity in culturally responsive teaching, their response to that is not treating any student differently. And I can see through that perspective, but that erases, I feel, and invalidates so many people's cultures and inclusion too. We shouldn't be treating each student the same because they're each different people, and they should not be treated the same based off of that. For reflection, so education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world is a fantastic motto for teachers to inspire their students. Our students are the future of tomorrow and are capable of great change. We need to instill that in them. And it's something that I've luckily have had teachers and professors who have instilled that in me and made me want to do that with my own students, because if we don't do that, then who are we educating? Who is our audience if they're not for the students and the well-being of them and for them wanting to eventually run this country one day? And understanding your own culture and identity. We as educators must push for progression in our schools and communities. That starts on a micro and then a micro level as well. To effectively teach being culturally responsive, we must understand what culture means to ourselves. So on my previous slide, defining it, as an educator, how do you define that? What does your culture mean to you? Do you relate to that? For some people, it may be stronger than others, and it's just identifying that and identifying with our self-identity to help work with our diverse students, because if you don't even understand what that means, you're not going to know how to relate to your students and why certain mechanisms that they do or behaviors, how they dress, things like that, and their families as well, is huge in the way they behave. Knowing your students. Each student is unique and must be treated likewise. No student learns in the same manner. And I mentioned that briefly in my other slide too. So the better we understand our students, learning can take place in the urban book 2, he had mentioned about these teachers really not understanding their students is one of the key issues. From hip hop, a lot of people, I've heard teachers too, not seeing the importance of it. It's not just rap lyrics, as most people would say too. It has actual meaning behind it, and we are not fully understanding that. The one takeaway that I have for the culturally responsive teaching too is teaching a new way chapter is huge in the way I thought about culturally responsive teaching too. Thanks so much for joining me for my Urban Science Education Review.